So why is it that in other countries around the world, other developed countries in particular, there is, lightning fast internet at, in many cases, half the cost of what we are paying for generally crummy internet across the United States? There's got to be a reason, right? Why is that? Well, Yosef Getachew is the Media and Democracy Program Director at Common Cause, commoncause.org. YGETACHEW number 2 or at Common Cause are the two Twitter handles. And Yosef, welcome back to the program. It's been quite a while. Tell me about why it is that we can't have nice things in the United States when it comes to broadband.
Well, thanks for having me, Tom. I think you accurately summed it up in your initial comments. Much of the country here has connectivity through the largest ISPs. That means Comcast, AT&T, and Verizon. But at the same time, much of the country doesn't have strong connectivity because of these companies. The truth is that these companies are really trying to maintain their market power when it comes to providing connectivity. Most Americans only have one meaningful choice for connectivity. At the same time, prices are continuing to go up in astronomical ways. For the most part, most households aren't able to adopt broadband because affordability is the biggest barrier. So what we're seeing here is you have the largest ISPs who are providing connectivity, but at the same time failing to provide connectivity in areas that are not profitable for them, raising prices, providing substandard services, or just failing to invest in low-income areas and redlining neighborhoods where they don't feel like providing quality networks to. And they're getting away with all of this because they are lobbying Congress and policymakers in a number of ways to make sure that their market power is upheld. So over the years, you've had Congress try and pass reforms, not just to close the digital divide, but to actually hold providers accountable for providing high-speed networks, affordable networks, and quality networks.
Yeah, if I'm...
The challenge is that...
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
No. I thought you were finished. Finish your thought. My apologies.
Yeah, the challenge here is that we've had ISPs spending millions of dollars lobbying these efforts and making sure that they don't actually see the light of day.
Yeah, looking at this new report that you guys published over at Common Cause, Yosef, the 15 biggest, most influential internet service providers spent more than $234 million on lobbying and federal elections during the 116th Congress, an average of more than $320,000 a day. This is why in France, for example, you can get a gigabyte speed internet and, bundled with a cell phone for $50 a month. And here in the United States, you can get really crappy internet service for $70, $80 a month. These guys are just cleaning up. Doesn't this, what you're describing of kind of these deserts, internet deserts, places where the broadband is just so dysfunctional, and particularly rural areas where they refuse to go. This is exactly what Franklin Roosevelt faced with the electric companies that didn't want to take electricity out to rural areas or deal with unprofitable low-income communities. It's exactly what Dwight Eisenhower confronted with telephone companies that didn't, or Ma Bell back in the day, that didn't want to pay to take telephone service into rural areas. And so FDR created the Rural Electrification Administration, the REA. We paid for that with federal money. Eisenhower, I believe it was Eisenhower, it could have been Truman, created the Rural Telephony Administration, the RTA, to do the same thing. Is it time for us to say enough? We're going to do as a nation like Chattanooga did. The whole city just said, okay, that's it. We're going to provide city. The city is going to provide broadband, and everybody in Chattanooga has access to really high quality, really fast, lickety-split internet service at a very low cost, and they don't have a company like Verizon or Comcast literally spying on every interaction, which creates the need for VPNs and things, so that you don't get spied on by your internet service provider.
Yeah, so I think the important point to note here is that we've actually spent billions of dollars over the years trying to get connectivity out to the entire country. But the problem is those dollars haven't always been tied to accountability metrics, safeguards, and quality of service standards that we all need. You mentioned the Rural Electrification Act earlier. These are national missions that you're talking about that we haven't had in quite a while. We've always thrown money at this problem, but not in a way that's actually upended the market power that ISPs have and given folks competition, meaningful choices, safeguards when it comes to quality of service, safeguards when it comes to speed and affordability. And these are the things that we've been trying to get Congress to do. As you probably know and your listeners know, there's an infrastructure bill getting discussed in Congress right now, and broadband infrastructure is a critical part of those discussions. We at Common Cause have endorsed the Accessible, Affordable Internet for All Act that was introduced by Whip Clyburn in the House and Senator Klobuchar in the Senate. And the idea behind this bill is not just to throw billions of dollars into deployment of networks, which it does, but to also include a lot of safeguards that we've been talking about. That means price transparency. So we actually know how much the service of a service, the price of a service costs. That means competition. So you have multiple providers in a service area, not just one provider. That means municipal networks. So if a company is refusing to invest in an area, you have the community on its own saying, okay, let's just do it and let's make sure we have the funding to do it and build out quality, affordable networks to our communities because no one else is doing it. And these are the kind of protections that we need that we haven't gotten in quite a while, and we have to tie the funding to those protections. Yeah. Not to mention actually getting strong authorities for our federal agencies over these networks.
It seems to me like one of the core issues that we need to address is, for lack of a better way, I'm sure that there's some technical term for it, you probably know, but basically the pipes, as it were. I mean, back in the day when it was dial-up and the internet was, you know, AOL and CompuServe, the phone company did not have, and to this day does not have, the ability to listen in on your phone conversation and adjust your bill based on what you're doing, or block, you know, who you may call. They can't do those things. This is the whole common carrier notion. And I remember when we were in Vermont, this was, you know, in the late 90s, early 2000s, there was a local internet service provider. It was called SovereignNet. Vermont used to, you know, there's this movement to make it a sovereign nation, thus the name. And, you know, Verizon was offering internet through your cable TV service, but you could get SovereignNet, and they also came through your cable TV service, but they, you know, Verizon had to rent space on their pipe to the local network, and it was like $25 a month for really high quality broadband. Eventually, they got Vermont to change the law so that whoever owns the wire going into your house can block you from having other people provide internet through that wire. That is not the case in France. In France and most of Europe. In most of Europe, whoever owns the wire coming into your house, if you want a different internet service provider to provide you with internet through that same piece of wire, they have to pay a small fee to that company for the maintenance of the wire, you know, of the pipe, of the whatever it may be, but they can't lock people out. Like here in the United States, I mean, the only internet service I can get, for example, is Comcast. But, you know, there's dozens of companies that would be glad to provide me with service over Comcast's lines if Comcast would allow it. But we have changed the law so Comcast can block them. Why don't we change that? Why isn't that like right at the top of the list? Because that creates competition.
No, you're absolutely right. And I think it comes down to one thing, oversight and accountability. Right now, the Federal Communications Commission is the expert agency over communications networks. But what ended up happening over the last 4 years is that agency completely abdicated its authority to oversee broadband networks. So when it comes to issues like privacy or net neutrality or other type of common carrier regulations, it comes down to that agency enacting or utilizing its authority. But what it said was, nope, we're not going to do anything. So it created this wild west where the biggest broadband providers can basically do whatever they want without any type of accountability when it comes to the actual service of the network or when it comes to competition and things like that. There's no accountability there. And so if we have an agency in place that actually says, hey, Comcast or hey, Verizon or whoever, you have to actually offer parts of your network to competitors so they can build out so there's meaningful competition, that's what the agency is there for. Right. We actually had broadband privacy rules back in the Obama era FCC. Those rules, unfortunately, got thrown out by Congress, and now there is no privacy rules when it comes to ISPs or let alone any other part of the digital ecosystem, and that's a conversation for another day. But again, it comes back to what authorities are we utilizing or not utilizing. Our report actually specifically says hey, FCC, you need to restore your authority over broadband to make sure that ISPs are not engaging in discriminatory and unjust practices like the ones we've been discussing.
Well, and right now, you know, Comcast can read every email I send. They can look at every website that I click on. They can sell that information to anybody who wants to target me specifically. And there's no rules or laws or anything preventing them from doing that, which I think is nuts. So we're talking with Yosef Getachew of commoncause.org. Yosef, we're just about out of time here. What can average people do to try to move this along? And what's the status of the FCC? Has Biden yet appointed a new FCC commissioner?
So we are waiting for the White House to appoint a fifth commissioner and designate one of the commissioners as the permanent chair of the agency. Right now, the agency is deadlocked at 2 democratically appointed commissioners and 2 Republican appointed commissioners. And with that deadlock, it can't move forward on issues like net neutrality or universal broadband in regards to some of the issues we've been talking about. And so we're waiting for that to happen. It could happen any time now. And once that deadlock is broken, we're hopeful that the agency can move forward on making sure broadband is universal and affordable for everyone.
That's great. You know, because it's like, this is such a mess, you know, what's going on here. And it's going on all over the country. Yosef, it's great talking with you. Thank you so much for dropping by.